So by the time this video comes out, I'm going to have an Etsy shop with these on there, maybe some other stuff as well in the future. So if you don't want to build one of these by yourself and you just want to purchase one, the link for that Etsy shop is going to be down in the description below. So if you want to try it, great. If not, go to that Etsy shop and get you one bought. I made a video about how to make this, which is a Bosal or a Bosalito. Bosalita, I honestly don't know. I did that on Instagram and everywhere else, and so I was going to make a longer version of how to actually do that to get your measurements right, how to tie that knot. So I'm going to do that right now. The first thing that you'll need to do is gather your material, and there's a little bit of science to what type of rope you use. It's all about the type of feel you want out of your Bosalito, or what I call a Bosal. If you want it to be slower or softer, obviously you'd want to start with a softer and slower style of rope. A lot of breakaway ropes, calf ropes are going to be a poly nylon blend and be a little bit softer. There certainly probably is too soft. Or you can use a team rope, and that's going to be a higher nylon style rope, and it's going to be stiffer. There's pros and cons to the stiff and the soft. Obviously this is used to help teach a horse how to go right and left. The magic of a Bosal or a Hackamore setup is it is kind of a signal device, less a direct pressure or leverage device, and so the nose of the horse, excuse me, goes down in there, and they learn kind of some balance off of this, some signal from this heel knot. So it's really kind of, you know, how reactive is your horse going to be. I would recommend for most people just having a softer one, and then deciding if you need a stiffer one. So both of these are just going to be one single band. But the softness of that totally changes that, and the diameter is about 3/8 or your normal size rope. So I'm just going to get at it. All right, so you're going to decide which size or style of rope you're going to use, and then this is where your other materials come into play. You need some electrical tape. I've done this without electrical tape, and it's fine. It's just a lot easier with electrical tape. And then you're going to need, you know, a full size rope. You're not going to need all of it, but I'd rather you not try to use a chunk and then not have enough. But here are your measurements. So what you want to do is from the end of your rope, this one's obviously been cut already, you're going to want 6 to 8 inches. Obviously the more you go, the more you waste. If you don't get quite enough, it'll be a little bit difficult to tie the knot at the end. So I would just recommend giving yourself that 6 to 8 inches, no sweat. And if anyone can figure out how to get electrical tape off of there easier, please tell me. But here we go. I'm just going to get that electrical tape, and this is just a marker. So 6 or 8 inches, you don't need to get your tape measure out and do that, and you're just going to put that tape on there. And then we're going to do our critical measurements. So most of these Bosals I make at 10.5 inches, and that is the dimension from the heel knot, the interior dimension from the heel knot to the nose band. That's going to fit most horses. You can go bigger, but that's how this works. So I'm going to take a measurement from the inside of this line, and I'm going to go 25 or 25.5 inches. So it's 25.5 is what I do. So I will do that real quick, grab my tape measure. Once again, it's the inside of that tape line, not the outside. It's not going to make a huge difference, but if you do that on both sides, it's going to make your Hackamore just a skosh too big or your Bosal just a skosh big. So I'm going to measure. One tip is to try to keep your rope nice and straight so that measurement is pretty accurate. So I'll go to 25.5 and put my finger there. Okay, now I'm going to tape on this side of that. The cool part about this is if, as you're getting it all set up, if it's just a little bit wrong, you can change it. So I get that tape line on there. There's no real structural reason for those. I would recommend not putting too much, because if you want to take that off, you have to unravel all of that. So then I'm going to fold it in half, just like so, and you can already see the shape of that. And I'm going to tape those two together. Once again, this is holding it together for now, but you will, a lot of times I do cut this off, so you don't need 8 wraps, just a couple is fine. And then what I'll do is I'll come up into the Bosal and tape a little bit more just so it holds it nice and flat. This one for sure you can just barely do, because it's going to come off about 30 seconds after you build your little Bosal, Bosalito, whatever you want to call it. Alright, now I have all of this extra. I'm just going to trim this to the exact same length that the other one is. 6 or 8 inches, no real science there. Take my handy dandy Leatherman and cut that. All right, now you are ready to make this dude. So once again, this thing is 25.5 inches to this line on both of those, and now we'll braid it. So this is, I've heard this called a crown knot, I've heard this called a Turk's head, I've heard it called a walnut. I have no idea what it's actually called. This is how I tie it. So I'm going to take both strands of these and untwist them. A lot of these will have a core. You'll want to get rid of that core, and I'll show you that here in a second. So you'll just take this and grab 2 of them together and start untwisting them. So I'm just going to untwist and go all the way down to my knot. Once I get that done, little tip is to try to do it decently quickly so it doesn't completely unravel. So you go all the way down and it'll stop you, your tape will stop you. And then do that to your other one. Just grab 2 that are together, you can see that. And I'm just going to unwind them. And most ropes, like I said, will have some type of core, and we're going to cut that out. It just looks messy, but it's no big deal. So I'll go ahead and do that. It's just this extra little stuff, and you just once again wind that all the way down to the knot. Get all that out of there. Cut. So I'll just take that. Keep your knife away from you, always cut away. That stuff is probably used for I don't know what. Once again, keep doing that until all the core is gone from all of your lines. Alright, now that you're at this stage, you've got all of the cores out, you need to divide these strands into equal amounts. So you're going to have sometimes where your rope is 5 strands, sometimes it's 4 strand, and so when you divide it, sometimes it's even and sometimes it's not. In my experience, it really doesn't matter. In this situation, I've got these, I'm guessing this must be 5 strand because I have one that's set as 2 and then one that's set as 3. So you can untwist these and pair them all up in 2, 2, 2, 2, 2s because that would be 5 sets, or leave them in the twist that they are because that's going to be stronger. So it will look just a little bit goofy as you go to braid, but it's going to be just fine. So this is where we start the Turk's head knot. I already have a video about how to do this knot. I'm going to explain it, but if you get real lost, go to that video that'll be linked in here. So all it goes is make a loop and go under your next strand. This is counterclockwise. Take the strand that you just did that with. Sometimes I hold my hand like this. Go under the next one, under the next one, and then this is the part that gets tricky, and it's not really, you just poke it through there. Now, this is where it gets critical to make sure that you get this nice and tight. So it just looks like a big wad. Now I just pull each strand one at a time until this knot tightens itself down. Keep going around. And once it starts to get pretty firm, then that's where you'll give her the elbow grease. Just go around each one at a time. In my experience, you can't really get this too tight, so just keep going around. You'll feel tiny little movement in there still. This is the foundation of a good knot here. Alright, the good part is we are almost done. We just tied that exact same knot again. So take a loop, stick it underneath the next one, stick it underneath the next one, stick it underneath the next one, and then that last tail we're just going to poke through our original loop, and then we'll tighten this down. Little bits at a time at first. Just like the first knot, you'll really want to get this tight. In the video I saw someone tying a different knot on the bottom of a Bosal made out of rope. They actually soaked it. I've never tried that to get tighter. I've had good luck with these staying really tight, not coming loose at all of all the ones that I have made. Okay, so once it's good and tight, it's going to look like that. We're going to trim these, singe those in, and then we'll braid the noseband. So after we've done that, we're going to cut, and I would recommend cutting 1 inch or 1.5 inches away so that you have plenty of room to burn it back in. So I'll just take a knife and cut all these up. Alright, this is what it should look like right before you burn everything in. You have a nice knot, all your tails sticking out. Now we'll burn them one at a time. Make sure you have a good source of heat, a lighter, a butane torch, and then something to metal to then push your burnt ends in there. Would not recommend doing that with your finger. Firepower. Yeehaw. Hold your flame and like away pretty good here. Get a good fire going. Be careful of those drips. Okay, it's going to burn back in there. I kind of let it go until it's pretty close. Blow it out, and then I'm just going to pinch it straight down into that knot, like so. That first little pinch is like that, and then I just round out the edges. Boom. Repeat that. Alright, so you've singed all of your ends in. There's just a few more things you can do with your torch. So you can see the core that's just still popping out there. I always singe that, and then I give the whole knot a little bit of heat as well and press it down some more. So the first thing I want to do before I do that, because I am going to use quite a bit of heat all over this, I'm going to cut this electrical tape. Boom, just like that. Okay, you can take that off. At any point in time when I was doing that, I can take an interior measurement of this Bosal from here to here, and that will give me my rough dimension of this, which should be 10.5. We'll see how good I did at the end. So we're going to burn that, and then I'm just going to singe any loose fiber on this, which will keep it from fraying more. Obviously that'll change the look of it. If you want a softer look, you don't have to do that, but I would recommend doing that. So I'm going to do that with the torch here. Alright, so now it's completely singed. You can use heat to tidy up this knot. If there's a piece that you don't like, an edge you don't like, you can warm it up, take a piece of metal and just keep working it around until you like it. Be careful not to use too much heat, because when you do, it certainly could break down the fibers. But now this guy right here is ready for a noseband. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to braid the noseband, which will also double as the hanger. You do not have to do it this way. I recommend it. I've used the ones that I've made quite a bit, and they hold up really well. Just as a point of interest, that last piece of electrical tape, you do not have to cut that out. It's a lot of work to cut that out, so I just kind of leave it because it doesn't bother me. So you see that on there, no big deal. It's going to fall off eventually, but that sucker's ready to go. So determine which side you want to be the front and the back. It really doesn't matter other than the measurements of your hanger. So I'm going to just decide, and here we go. So I stick it between my legs. You can put it in a vise, you can do whatever you want. Then you're going to take your measurement of your 550 cord, which is also known as parachute cord. Pick whatever color you want. White seems to work really well, because as it ages, it kind of just turns into a beige cream and isn't very noticeable. Obviously, you could go crazy and get any color you want. So the measurements for this are on the left side of the horse. You would want that to be roughly 12 feet. Okay, I sometimes go just a little more. That way I for sure can get it to fit everything. So if you're a 6-foot person, that's just going to be 2 of your wingspans. Otherwise, grab a tape measure. I just go a tiny bit more. Cut that off, and then you will want to singe this stuff because it will unravel, because it's a braided piece around a bunch of little strings, and those little strings go crazy if you don't singe them. So I will do that real quick. Save yourself the heartache and always singe the parachute cord. So 12 feet, that's what it is. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it inside the Bosal like that, keep my tails together, I'm just going to keep going all the way up till it's stuck. Now this is where you need to determine the center of your Bosal, or roughly. So I just hold it up. Sometimes I pull it down so I for sure have it, and then come right here and start my knots. So to do this, it's just a bunch of granny knots over and over. One on the top, one on the bottom, and you just keep going over and over. So here is the granny knot. You can do it any way you want. I think technically you can go left or right, but all I do is I go to the center right here and then cross my lines. Okay, so that's a granny knot. Once I pull my tails, we've all seen that knot right there, no big deal. Now, once again, I'm going to check my center before I get going, and that looks pretty good. Obviously, if anything, it can be just a skosh off center towards me, just so you know. Now, I'm going to do the same thing underneath. I'm going to keep the Bosal where it's at, and all I'm going to do is tie a granny knot. Pull my tails, and this is where I'd recommend is always tighten your top knot, tighten your lower knot. The hardest part is just keeping your tails somewhere in the neighborhood, okay? Same thing over and over. Keep everything nice and tidy. Once you get good at this, you can do it a lot faster, probably even than I'm doing it. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that process, and I keep a count. I go 19 or 20 knots, and that's going to keep it away from the horse's eye on the top and the bottom. So it ends up being somewhere between 38 and 40 knots, technically. So that's 1, 1, 2. Now here comes my other 2, and I just keep going. All right, so I've got all of my knots. I've got 19 to right here. I'm not going to do 19 on this side. I'm now going to do a square knot. So this is the same, over here, but I'm just going to invert it. You get lost, you're probably going to tie it wrong once, and then you'll decide it's right when it looks like a square knot. That is a square knot right there. So now I am done. This is where you should give it a good pull. It's going to loosen some, just the nature of where it's at, but this is how I finish it out. So I have this piece that's going to go back to my horse's ears, and this piece obviously would be hanging off the front, and we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it back and have it facing this way. This is going to get you a little bit tripped up, but you'll be fine. Go over this one and through the Bosal. Okay, so you have this loop, and then you're just going to go back through itself, and then you're going to pull that guy tight, pull your other one tight, pull that guy tight, back and forth until that's snugged down super, super tight. Now, I've made some of these and not put a knot behind here, and they work just fine. You can just take and do an overhand knot here if you want to. I'm going to leave this one just the way it is. Now I'm going to do the other side, and then we'll reconvene when I have all that done, and I'll show you how I tidy these last little ends up at the very end. All right, as you can see, I've got both sides braided. When I went and headed and did the other side, I just butted those knots up, did the same thing, exact same finishing knot. So you should have a short piece and a longer piece. I'm going to show you the knot that I use to finish this up. So on the left side of your horse, your shorter piece, you can use whatever knot you want. I use a Hondu knot. So what I do is you just tie an overhand knot like so. Okay, so it's just like the ones on the noseband. And then I just snug it up pretty far. The cool part about these is there's so much room for adjustment and customization to your horse. This is just how to make it functional. So I have that, and then on one side, I'm just gonna make an opening. I'm gonna run my tail back through like so, but I'm gonna leave a loop, okay? So I have my overhand knot, tail back through it, and all I'm gonna do is suck that down. You can make this as big or as small as you want. I would recommend not too big. It would probably get sloppy, so that's what it should look like. This is when you could cut this and singe it or do whatever you want. And then you just take your other side, and I'll show you how it ties in there. So it'll tie just like a halter knot. So your band that's on the right side of the horse will come over, and you just go through that knot. There's probably a real name for this knot. I just call it a halter knot. And you stick it back through, which I know that looks like a jumbled mess, but when you get done, it looks just like the knot that you tie on your halter. And so you have all of this extra to customize however you want. Most of the time this is way too big for horses. I make them this big so that is an option. You can go ahead and just start cutting and tie the same knots again. So you can cut off 6-8 inches on each one and retie those knots, and it's perfect. Another option you can do, and I do this on a lot of them, is to tie overhand knots, which I'll just show you that. I'm not going to do it on this one all the way around, but I'll tie an overhand knot. The theme of this video should be overhand knot. And it would just be a little bump on there. That's going to take out just a little bit of that overall length, and I would just keep going, making them nice and even all the way around, and that would make this to where it would be smaller. But if you had a horse that you wanted to make it bigger for, you just take those dudes out. But that's how you do it right there. And I'm just going to finish this up. We'll start back in here and I'll just show you what it looks like when it's completely done. All right, as you can see, it's all done. I have my Hondu knot in the big loop here, a halter knot there. You can adjust these knots, you can cut more off. It doesn't really matter, but that's kind of the final product. I always give them a good little wash and then just pull on them real good. I'll just show you the measurements so you can see that this right here is no different in a lot of ways than your actual expensive Bosal. That'll probably tick some people off. It certainly is not the same quality or signal function as a good rawhide one, but this is a great option for you. So you can see from the heel knot to the top of this, it's 10.5. Okay, it's obviously going to fluctuate and move just a little bit, but that's going to fit a lot of your horses. Most Macatis, you're going to have 1 to 2 wraps and then pull your rein, and this is going to be perfectly good. So for those of you who want to get into the game of Bosals, Bosalitos, Hackamore setups, and don't have a huge budget, this dude right here is a great place to start. If you love it and you like it, you want to get the nicer and newer thing, at least you have an educated opinion. So that's just how I make that right there.